Hi, this is Kit, and I want to walk you through how we transformed these lovely little gems into freshly squeezed apple cider. So we got a couple boxes of apples from friends and family, and initially we started with whole apples. We ended up doing some quarters and eventually slices, which I'll get to later on. But I want to show off our initial treatment, which is kind of fun to watch. My husband took, I think it's a paint mixer that you mount on a drill. He sharpened it into essentially a gigantic emulsion blender. So you can see him emulsing these apples. And it was pretty fun. I think he actually enjoyed it, but it's rather labor intensive because this was our test run of a small batch of apples, and it just took quite a lot of labor and time. Now, to do apple cider, you have to do two things. You have to chop up the apples, and then you also have to press them. So my husband was grabbing a drill press from someone about the same time I was researching apple cider projects. And he called me up and he said, "Hey, I think I've solved our press problem." So we got a good price on this hydraulic press. A hydraulic press operates without electricity. It's using hydraulics, which I believe is based on fluid force. So to do this, you have to have a clean cloth, of course, to separate the juice from the pulp of the apples. You need something like this wooden piece to evenly distribute the pressure from the hydraulic press across the entire container. And then we used just kind of wood that was around in order to transfer the force adequately between the press and that distributing board. So here you can see it goes down almost with a jacking type of action. And shortly after starting to press and meeting a little bit of resistance, you start to see that apple cider weeping through the holes. So this was our test run. We didn't do a whole lot. We wanted to see how the concept seemed to work. We added some more holes after we saw that there was a lot of liquid accumulating above that distribution plate. And then we went on to phase 2. So I decided, rather than having to use that emulsion blender, that we would pre-chop these apples. So I pre-sliced them, but I did it several hours ahead and they dried out. So I would do this again, but I would do it in such a way that we're immediately pressing the apples because they did get dry while they were waiting in my kitchen. So we filled up the bucket with a larger cloth, about 1/3 of the bucket we filled with apples, and then we put the plate in, made sure it's covered with the cloth, and then started to press it. So something else that's essential is not only pressing the apple pulp and basically separating it from the juice, but you need something to catch the juice. So we used just an aluminum foil cake pan. You can see here as we started to press, you see some initial weeping, and then it starts to quickly accumulate and really starts to flow, which is exciting to see out of those holes. We decided, rather than emptying out the pan in batches, my husband just tapped through a drain hole in that aluminum foil cake pan. And so as we were pressing all of the apples, it drained straight into a pot. So that worked quite nicely. Now, something that you see when you research these type of projects is lots of reinforcing on the 5-gallon buckets, and we learned quickly why. That pressure does quite a number on the plastic 5-gallon container. So we made do, and we fixed it, quote unquote, with some zip ties to get through the project, but we're going to have to reconsider how we deal with that pressure next year. Now, when you have freshly squeezed cider, they recommend that you pasteurize it. That's 160 degrees. You can see that's pasteurized. And this was our first batch, so I thought, I'm going to do some mulled cider. So I threw in some mulling spices, cardamom, cloves, cinnamon. I'm sure there was some mace in there. So lots of kind of chai spices. And you can see there, I'm just straining it through a coffee pour over filter. And that leaves me with a beautiful glass of hot mulled cider. So that was lovely to have, and I encourage everyone else to try this. Cheers!